So my girlfriend requested a Patio build, and I'm going to be going through kind of the different steps, materials we use, and the process for putting this together. I can put a list together for all the Home Depot items that we bought, as well as the rough cost. I think it turned out to be about $300. We used a variety of 2x4s, I think 8 sections of 8-foot long 2x4s, I believe it was oak, as well as a couple sheets of 4x8-foot particle board. Started out just, I drew everything by hand, kind of measured out all the dimensions we'll kind of need and gave a rough design. So after that, kind of went through all the drawings and marked up all the dimensions on the particle board, as well as all the 2x4 lengths. And first step was really just cutting everything. So going through and making all the initial cuts, and then the next step would be basically sanding and putting it all together. All of the cuts made in the video on the 2x4s were done with a circular saw, and a jigsaw I found to be a lot easier for the particle board. That $300 that I mentioned in the start of the video is basically just for the raw materials, not any of the actual tools required. You can probably do this with some hand saws and screwdriver, but I'd recommend at least a circular saw or a jigsaw, as well as a drill. After making all the initial cuts, gone through and actually sand all the parts to prep it for staining and painting, since this will exist outside. And the idea is to essentially put this up against an open window to allow the cat's outdoor access. This project definitely required some adapting to as it went along. One imperfection or problem that we ran into was that the ramp was too steep for the cats in the space that we allotted for. So we ended up going with this ramp design that you'll see was kind of the last cut or piece added to the project before the actual assembly. So this is all the wood after making all the initial cuts. It's going to be 2 stories, and all the frame is supported by the 2x4s, as well as a couple joints to connect them. And this is the actual stain and paint that we're using. Instead of using a primer and actual paint, this is kind of a 2-in-1, so you can just apply a couple coats of this and it should both weather seal and paint it at the same time. So this is us going through and actually applying coats to all the different surfaces before actually putting it all together. So this is a pretty time-intensive process, since it did take several coats for each surface, as well as kind of the sanding process before. The electric sander helped quite a bit, just to remove any burrs, different surface imperfections, just to help it, well, look a lot better and help the paint both apply a lot better. I'm no expert on this stuff. I just kind of went with what I looked up on Google and YouTube and previous projects before kind of going through this. And this is what it looks like starting the initial assembly. So we have the actual 2x4s connected with a couple of joints supporting the initial structure, as well as particle board as the base. And some of the excess particle board was used for walls for the lower level. It's supposed to look like a mini apartment or condo. So to actually hold all the 2x4s together, we used tie angle joints. One 2x4 will sit vertically in the middle of the joints, and the 2x4s will connect laterally into them, and a couple screws support them, and it seemed to be pretty sturdy. And the actual particle board was cut out to fit right inside of it, so that could just be screwed on, but didn't really need any supports because it was cut to the exact shape of the frame. And then for the actual walls, just use little L angle brackets to secure them to both the floor and the walls for support. And of course we had to get their approval before moving to the second story. And that's actually the upper level there, and the actual roof has a slant to it. This kind of came in midway through the build process, so we added the 2x4 extensions on top because it does rain and snow where we're at, so we want that to be able to slide off the actual roof and not be inside the structure. So all the actual surfaces that the cats are on are carpeted, and there's a step between the 2 levels which we have set up here. It's just a extra particle board with some of the carpet actually stapled to it. And this is a quick glimpse at the first level before putting on the second story. There's some fake grass used that was excess from the backyard, as well as wallpaper for all the walls. And there's some exterior fake wood paneling and a solar powered light, give it a little bit of glam, and then some fake flooring for the base for the inside of the first level. And to actually keep the cats on the inside, we use chicken wire, I believe it's 1/2 inch squares, and just use an angle grinder to cut everything down and kind of round out some of the edges so it's not sharp so the cats can't hurt themselves. So cutting it down to size, and then these are actually just going to be staple gunned to the exterior. Here's the actual stick-on, it looks like stone paneling for the outside, just to give it a different look. It's a peel and stick, and then you can actually just cut it down with a razor blade or box cutter, X-Acto knife, just to get it to the exact shape or size. And then we wanted to be able to access the inside to actually clean, remove the cats, or just make any changes or modifications. So got some extra wood to make basically just a rectangular frame, and put chicken wire on the inside and have some just door hinges on the outside to open up. And yes, as you'll see, we actually did use roofing for the roof for this project. And this is us actually applying or attaching the chicken wire to the frame and the gate on the front side. So again, it was all just staple gunned around to the 2x4s and mounted 2 door hinges to the top of this gate in the front, which will have an actual bar to hold it up if we want to allow the cats to go outside. And you'll see 2 little planters on the outside of either side of the frame, and that's its ability to open up in the front. Here's kind of the first look at the planter. Those are just a bunch of fake succulents in some of the rock that were just kind of hot glued in there, so it's no real maintenance needed. This is a first look at what it's going to look like up against the house. So you'll see the open window, as well as the slant before the roof goes on, and the first and second level. Again, it's just a hole with a kind of a step down so they can step down and sit halfway in between each level. They gave them some house numbers and a light, and they really seem to enjoy kind of going in between the levels and being able to go outside, without fully letting them outside. That's just a quick look or rundown at us putting the catio together. It seemed to be a success, and the cats really liked it, and hope you enjoyed.